Hi everyone, welcome back to another weekly video on my channel. Bit of a different video this week. I'm not doing my usual calming voiceover because I can't actually show you any clips or anything in this video, which I will explain about later. But don't worry, I'll be back to my usual calming ASMR voice that you all love because you keep commenting on it next week. For this week's video, I'll be giving you some career advice if you want to get into the animation industry. And I can't actually show you any clips or anything of the shows that I've worked on because, you know, YouTube, copyright, NDAs, that sort of thing, which is why I am not doing the voiceover this week. I wanted to make this video because I always wished that I had a mentor when I was younger to guide me, and I really want to be the adult I needed when I was younger, so that's why I'm making this video. Hopefully the advice I give you will work for you. If it does, then great, but if it doesn't, then remember we're all different and you just need to find someone to give you advice that does work for you. Alright, now that all the disclaimers and everything are out of the way, let's get into this week's video.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them.
Alright, like I said, I'm going to be giving you advice if you are interested in getting into the animation industry. I have worked in the industry for over 5 years now, and I have all my points written down that I will be going through one by one with you. The first point I have is to make sure that this is what you really want to do. I always knew that I wanted to be an artist, and when I was 4 years old, I watched The Little Mermaid, Disney's The Little Mermaid, on video. Even at that young age, I knew that cartoons were drawings. I was not one of those kids that thought that cartoons were real, and I was just fascinated by this movie. I thought it looked so amazing, and I wanted to be an animator when I grew up. If you have ever seen that movie, it's just beautiful. It's the last entirely hand-drawn Disney movie. Every Disney movie since has had some sort of computer animation in it. But if you look at the lighting, especially in the scene where Ariel saves Prince Eric on the beach, it's just so beautiful and it's all hand-drawn. So the FX team were on point for that movie. I think it took them a year to do the shipwreck as well, so go watch the movie. It's amazing. I love it. But the point is, I knew ever since I was little, deep down, that I wanted to be an animator. Of course, as a kid, I would change my mind and, you know, I want to be a detective one day, an astronaut the next day, and I even wanted to be a paleontologist, but I would always come back to wanting to be an animator. When I was 10 years old, I saw The Lion King at the cinema. Yep, that's how old I am. After watching that movie, I was even more convinced that I wanted to be an animator when I grew up. So that is my first point, that this is really what you want to do. Animation is not for everyone, and that's fine. If you don't want to be an animator, there are plenty of other jobs that you can choose from. But I would definitely make 100% sure that this is the industry that you want to get into. The second point I have for you after you have decided that this is what you want to do is to not listen to all the negative people in your life. I unfortunately started this career a bit later than what I wanted to because everyone around me, my friends, my family, my teachers, was so negative about it. They would say things like, you can't be an artist, you'll never make any money, it's not a real job, blah blah blah. Well, guess what? It is a real job. I do get paid for it and I love it. For me, it's not like work. It feels like getting paid to do what I love. So I know that this is the career for me. Unfortunately, when I was younger, I listened to all those negative people and I didn't get into the industry until later. So now I'm giving you this advice. Don't listen to these negative people and just go for it, because my only regret is not starting this career sooner. When everyone around you is telling you that you can't do this, you start to think, maybe they're right, maybe they know something I don't, but I would not listen to them. If this is what you really want to do, go for it. Okay, the third point I have for you is to choose which type of animation you want to go into. There are different types of animation. I, for example, do 2D. There's also 3D and claymation or stop motion. For my job, I mostly work on TV shows and, little kids cartoons, but I have also worked on adult series as well. It is done on a screen. Most all animation is done on a screen now, except in some studios in Asia like Korea and Japan. But I would not recommend going into those studios. Hand-drawn animation is very rare, and in those places you get paid like 7 cents a drawing, which is not worth it in my opinion. So I wouldn't go for those studios if I were you. A brief explanation of each different type of animation. 3D is mostly done on computer programs, and a lot of my friends who work in the industry tell me that you don't have to know how to draw or be artistic to work in that. 2D is also done on a screen mostly. Even hand-drawn is done on a screen now. I'll explain more about the different types of programs later on in this video. But I work in 2D and sometimes I do redraw things on the screen, but not that often. And then claymation or stop motion is when you record figurines either made out of clay or not made out of clay, and you go from pose to pose, whereas in other animation you make the key poses first and then do the in-betweens after. I'm not gonna get into all that because that would just be a whole series of other videos, and if you want to learn more about that, you can just look it up online. Choose which animation you want to go into. Okay, step number 4 is to get the equipment necessary that you will need. I use a Cintiq, which is basically a screen that you can draw on. I use this for work. It is my own Cintiq. Sometimes studios will provide one for you, especially as we are working from home now, but you do have to be aware of scams. I've had some people say that a studio will contact them and say, oh, if you give us this amount of money, we'll send you a Cintiq. No, that is a scam. So I use a Cintiq for work. You can also use a tablet, one that you can draw on. One other thing I think is very important is that you should take advantage of all the information that you have available to you to learn as much about animation as you can. These days there are YouTube tutorials and apps that you can download. You can look up information online to learn how to do animation. I think it's important to just research and try these things even before you go to animation school, if that's what you want to do. Download the apps, look up tutorials online, and learn as much as you can about animation. I know some people who even make their own claymation and stop motion animations and post them on TikTok. So you have so many things available to you these days that I did not have when I was a kid. For me, if I wanted to learn about animation, I would have had to go to the library to look up a book on animation, and even then my library might not have had that book. And if I wanted to order that book in, it would have taken weeks and weeks. So please take advantage of all the information that you have available to you and learn as much about animation as you can and practice. You can get a tablet and draw your own animations. There are apps that you can download to teach you. You could even draw on your phone if you wanted to and learn animation that way. So that's another point that I have for you. You will need to have equipment for animation. Eventually you will probably need a Cintiq because that is what we use in the industry. It might change in the future, but for right now that's what we are using. And this leads me into my next point, which is to learn the programs that you will need to know for each different type of animation. For 3D, you will need to know how to use Maya. For 2D, you will need to know how to use Flash or Harmony. I use Harmony. I've worked on Harmony shows my whole career. I think it's a great program because it was actually made to do animation, whereas Flash was not, and I do not like Flash. That was more of a drawing program, not an animation program. But anyway, I think Bluey, that Australian show, uses a different program. I don't know what it is. You can just look it up if you want to know what it is. And for stop motion claymation, like I said, there are apps that you can download which you can use for that. So we have covered making sure that this is what you really want to do, not listening to negative people, choosing which type of animation you want to get into, the different type of equipment you'll need, and learning about the programs. The next point I have for you is I think you should ask yourself whether or not you want to go to animation school, because like I said, you can self-teach yourself these days with all the things available to you. And there have been successful animators who have been self-taught. You know, there's successful YouTube channels that do animation, although their animation is very limited. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just different than what you would do if you work in a studio. So decide whether or not you want to go to animation school. I went to animation school. I think it's a good thing to do. And the other thing you have to decide these days is whether you want to do it virtually or if you want to go in person. I prefer to go in person because that's how I learn. But if you are a digital learner and, you know, these days it is available to you to have a completely online experience if you want to go to animation school. If that is what suits you, then that is what you can do. But I also think it's very important to go in person because you're not just learning about animation, you're meeting the people in person that you will work with in the future. And that can be beneficial because if someone gets hired at a studio and they know that you do good work, then they can recommend you. And vice versa, if you know someone that's good at working in this industry, you can also recommend them. But I would be very careful with that. I would only recommend people you know that would work really well. Because if they mess up or if they don't work out, then that can reflect badly on you. And also you have to be a little bit diplomatic depending on where you live and work. Like in Australia, you can be pretty straightforward and say something like, I know their work's not great, so I wouldn't recommend them. But in Canada, where I live and work, you have to be a little bit more diplomatic and say something like, oh, we did work in the same studio, but not on the same show, so I can't really recommend them. Depending on where you live and work, you have to figure out how to navigate these sorts of things. Alright, we have come to the end of this video, my last point, and that is do not be egotistical. You can be the most talented, amazing artist, but if you have an ego, you will not last long in this industry. I have seen it happen to several people. If you're too up yourself, then you will not last long in this industry. You will be let go, which is our words for being fired. But if you're humble and you listen to your supervisors and do your work, then everything will work out for you. Okay, so let's go through the points that I covered in this video one more time. The first thing is to make sure that this is really, really what you want to do. For me, I knew ever since I was a little girl deep down that I wanted to be an animator. So decide whether this is the industry you want to go into or not. 2, don't listen to all those negative people telling you things like, oh, you can't do this, it's not a real job, you won't make any money for it. I do make a decent salary from this. It's not like, you know, super excellent, but I do make a decent living from this job. And also it is a real job. And then choose which type of animation you want to go into. Do you want to do 2D? Do you want to do 3D, claymation, stop motion? And number 4 is to get the equipment that you'll need. I love the Cintiq, I think it's great, but you know, if you're still in school, maybe get a drawing tablet or something, or even on your phone, you can download apps to do claymation and stop motion. 5, learn the programs that you will need. These programs might change in the future, they probably will, but for right now, for 3D, you need to know how to use Maya. For 2D, you will need to know how to use Flash or Harmony or that other one that Bluey uses. I don't know what it's called, but you can look it up. And for claymation or stop motion, you can download apps for that. And number 6, decide whether or not you want to go to animation school and whether you want to do it virtually or in person. And 7, only recommend people for jobs when you actually do get into the industry that you know will do good work. And number 8, do not be egotistical. Alright, so that is all I have for you for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you didn't miss the calming voice too much. Next week's video, I will go back to my nice calming voiceover for you because I know you all love it. Let me know what you think of this video, and if you have any advice for people who want to get into this industry, please leave it in a comment below. And I will see you next time. Bye!
Living life every day.